Hey folks, got a great episode lined up for you today. We've got one of our community members, Clay, on the show today as a co-host. He was on the show once quite a ways back, but today he's back and we're talking home labs today. Now, a home lab is something of a rite of passage for most sysadmins. Most sysadmins I know, they maintain a home lab in their house of various shapes and sizes, and it's used for learning, it's used for tinkering, it's used for breaking things, penetration testing, lots of different things, right? And so I figured I'd have Clay on the show today, and we would talk about exactly what is in each of our home labs. Now, I've been in the sysadmin trenches for 2.5 decades now, and Clay's a little bit newer, so it's really interesting to see kind of the contrast between the two of our labs, what we use them for, how we use them, and lots more. So we got that and lots more in today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Hey everyone, it's a new week. It means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by sysadmins for sysadmins and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks working out there in the trenches day in and day out to keep the digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and I've got I shouldn't say new face. We've had Clay on the show before, but it's been a while. How's it going, Clay? I got Clay with me today.
Thank you for having me today, Andy. Hi. Yes, this is my second appearance. For folks joining in recently, my name is Clay. I'm a young sysadmin by the age of 29, and I'm currently working for an MSP over in the Netherlands on the southern side. And it's been good to be on the show once again, Andy. I gotta say, I'm listening to SysAdmin Weekly, weekly in the car, and it's my go-to podcast. And I'm happy to say that I'm also shamelessly plugging it to each and every one of my IT friends.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show too, because it's in the name, sysadmin, right? It would only make sense that we have sysadmins who are actively working in the trenches come on and share their knowledge and insight. And you could see the gray in my beard, so I'm approaching gray beard territory in the sysadmin world. So I like to get some folks that are a little bit newer in the trenches on the show as well too. So it's always good to talk to folks, especially people that are part of our community as well too. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Clay, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat with us. So good having you, my friend. And
Likewise.
Yeah. And so our topic today is home lab related. And so I've been doing a lot with my home lab over the last probably 2 months or something like that now. It's been part of my nerd hour segment for like the last, 8 episodes or something like that. Something to do with my home lab. And I thought it'd be fun to do an episode where we talk about what is actually in our home labs. Why is this particular component there? What purpose is it serving? Why do I have this thing configured this particular way? What actually brings value? What am I using to learn? We'll probably touch on a little bit of all that stuff. Now, I know from our planning conversations, Clay, I think you are actively in the process of building up your home lab. I think that's what you mentioned, correct?
That is indeed correct. I am currently in the process of building up my home lab from scratch. I had a concept last year where I had put my hands on, and it was existing out of a few mini PCs and some sort of tech scrap that I could get by. And now I'm fully enveloped in building it up from the ground up. And I gotta say, it's a time-consuming hobby, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm building things, learning new things predominantly, and before I know it, I spent hours on a single part of the home lab,
Oh
and
yeah,
then I look over at the clock and I was like, "Oh, I gotta go to bed. I have to get up for work tomorrow." So
yep.
yeah, it's a great thing to spend your time on. Great thing to learn by as well.
For sure, for sure. So that's the crux of today's episode. And of course, before we get to our main topic, we have our recurring segments here, and I have to do my show plugs. So I guess I'll start with my show plugs. So if you're new to the show, welcome. I hope you enjoy your time here. We have a great time. We have a great community, and we have. I guess you could say our intros are a little bit on the longer side, but we talk tech stuff, we talk geeky, nerdy stuff, and we have a good time. If you want to get right to the meat and bones of the episode, the main topic, go to about 20 minutes in, and you'll get to the main topic, roughly, give or take a few minutes. But in terms of plugs for the show, right? I said I was going to plug the show. If you want to find all the links associated with the show, you can go out to www.sysadminweekly.com, and that'll get you links to Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. There's also a link there to our GitHub discussions board that you can use to ask questions of the community, leave funny stories, that type of stuff. I have a thread going there right now, asking people for their friends and family IT support stories. Right, those. Hey, I'm I'm back at my folks' house for holidays, and wait, mom somehow managed to turn the desktop 180 degrees somehow, and it's upside down. How do So that wasn't my mother in that case. That was actually one of my brother-in-laws when they were very little. But that's an example of a friends and family IT support story, right? So if you want to share your friends and family IT support stories, I would love to feature a bunch from the community on the show in a future episode at some point in time. So that's just an example of what you'll find out at the GitHub discussion boards. With that, I guess we'll get to our first regular recurring segment, and that is our News React segment. This is the segment of the show where my co-host and I, we pick a tech news headline that grabbed our eyes over the last couple of weeks, and we discuss briefly. So, Clay, I'm going to let you go first on this one. What's your news item that caught your eye?
Well, it's a recurring news item that has been going on for a few months now, ever since November 2025. For my Dutch folks out there, you'll probably know what I'm referencing to, but it's the takeover of Solvinity. This is a Dutch cloud company that provides the technical infrastructure of DigiD. DigiD is our main way over in the Netherlands to log in into secure governmental websites, like doing your taxes, finding medical info, doing anything related to subsidization, anything that has to do with the government and you. Personally, you have to have DigiD. DigiD is hosted by Solvinity, and Solvinity is a private company over here in the Netherlands, and it had been for the last couple of years. There were already talks that it was, how do you say it was put in the window, up for grabs.
Yep.
And suddenly, starting November 2025, a US-based company called, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Kindrill,
Interesting.
actually announced that they would like to take over and buy Solvinity, the company that hosts our DigiD. And well, because Solvinity is hosting it, the overseeing government agency Logius, the owner of DigiD, did a impact analysis on, hey, this US company wants to buy this cloud company that provides fundamental infrastructure to about 17.5 million 17.5 million people over here in the Netherlands. Is that something that we should take a look on? And well, we did. The ACM, which is the authority for consumer and market, gave the green light to Kyndryl for the takeover on Solvinity. And there were a lot of talks on both tech websites and political sided websites, debates that went on TV, on the radio, talk show hosts, and everything. There were, if I could put it mildly, not a lot of fans and not a lot of positive reaction to the takeover. Eventually, for now at least, the breakpoint came end of May, 26 May. That's when State Secretary Willemijn Aerts of Economical Business actually blocked the takeover formally on very urgent advice of the BTI, the Bureau of, well, I'm gonna go ahead and just translate it over. It's a bureau that looks over everything, every private company that gets taken over by foreign entities.
Yep.
And she assessed that this is not up for debate, and the blockade should immediately go in effect, and Kyndryl should be blocked from taking over Solvinity there and then. And this is a matter of state, national, and public interest. So that was very interesting to see where it went. Me and my friends had a few discussions about it as well, since some of my friends have partners or had partners in the US. So it was a bit of the political climate over there between the political climate over here. It gives you a bit of an uneasy feeling.
Yep.
Also raises the question: how much should we depend on foreign entities, or should we rather create our own infrastructures, or at least create them in the EU, where we are housed under a sort of umbrella, so to say. Kyndryl, of course, spoke out against the blockade. They disagree, said the government should never have intervened, and are taking this up to court. And I believe July 6th is the first case hearing, so I'm interested to see where that's going. So that's a news item that I've been preoccupied with for the last couple of months. So how about you, Andy?
Well, that's the first time. That's the first I'm hearing of this particular case, and that's an interesting one. So people that watch the show know I don't talk a ton of politics on the show, but I will always be on the side of privacy and security because, of course, I work in the cybersecurity sector, right? And so I'm surprised the deal got that far, to be honest, because if I'm the Netherlands and that system is used by basically every citizen there, from what it sounds like, that's a lot of personal data to give up to a foreign entity. And again, I don't get into the politics a whole lot on the show, but we don't really have all of our stuff together right now in the US in a lot of ways, right? And so that's why there's that big sovereignty movement in the EU, rightly so. And so I'm surprised it even went that far in the process. So I mean, when it comes down to something like that, I mean, it seems to make sense that you would want that data to at least live within the boundaries of the EU, where you guys have much much better privacy laws like GDPR than we do here in the US. And I mean,
Right.
I would think that if something similar were happening here in the US, if we had a similar system and I don't know, an Australian company was gonna buy the system and service it, we'd probably be doing the same thing, I would imagine. So anyway, so interesting story. I'm gonna have to put that on my watch list. So, well, the one on my list here for interesting news item, uh, if you've been watching the show, I've been talking a lot about AI, how it can help sysadmins lately. I recently did a conference talk at InfoSec Europe about, using local LLMs to do spear phishing, that type of thing. Well, this one caught my eye. It's an article by Wired, and I'll put the link to these in the show notes. But the headline is this: Claude helped a hacker find a way to issue tickets to almost every U.S. music festival. So there's a lot of music festivals here in the U.S. We've got Lollapalooza is the big one I'm familiar with. There's, and I hope I'm saying this right, Bonnaroo, I think, Bonnaroo. I think I'm saying that right, Bonnaroo. Basically, there is a there's a company called a company or an application. I'm not sure which, called FrontGate, and that is like the ticketing front end for these music festivals. Basically, he was able to use Claude Opus 4.7 to break into that website and issue tickets to any of the festivals that he wanted. Now, he it came to light, of course, but still, it further speaks to the whole message that AI is giving folks access to abilities that only the most talented hackers used to have at a point in time, right? So I've been listening to a lot of Security Now lately. A lot of folks know I recommend that podcast with Steve Gibson. Steve has been long in security longer than I've even been in I've even been in my career, right? Steve's been in security forever. And Steve brought up a really good point about this whole thing about AI surfacing all of these vulnerabilities and stuff. He said something, and I'm paraphrasing here, right? I'm not quoting him directly, but he said something along the lines of basically, we are now paying the price of decades of poorly, lazily written software. We never made security the priority, right? And well, now we have AIs, which are as capable of some of the best hackers in the world. And well, the chickens are coming home to roost now. That's a saying here in the US. I hope it translates to the Netherlands. I think it does, Clay,
Yeah.
but you get the
Yeah.
idea.
Yes.
So anyway, so that is my news item. Again, I'll put the links to those in the show notes, folks. That way you can check that out. Now on to our Nerd React segment. This is a segment of the show, Nerd React. Boy, I'm getting my segments mixed up. My Nerd Hour, the Nerd Hour segment of the show.
Yes.
Now, there's a joke behind the name Nerd Hour. If you want to find out the reason behind that, you can go back to the early episodes, the single-digit episodes of the show. Basically, this is the segment of the show where my co-host and I, we talk about the geeky, nerdy things that we're doing, either in our professional time or our spare time. And I guess I'll selfishly go first on this one. A lot of my Nerd Hour stuff lately is revolving around setting up various workflows using Claude Code to surface various kinds of information. So I think I mentioned this one in the last episode. I've been looking for ways to identify emerging, interesting topics and trends from a number of different sites on the interwebs and find correlations. So, for example, you've got these 12 subreddits, and this particular topic showed up on 8 of them over the last 14 hours. What is that topic and why? And why might people be talking about it? That type of thing. I've actually come up with some very interesting workflows using Claude Code for that. Additionally, on top of that, just making more use of agents generally. So historically, a lot of my AI use has been like everybody else's, very chat driven, right? Like, hey, here's a question, or hey, do this thing, now do that thing. Now it's more, I've gotten a lot further into creating silos for agents to operate in, and that way they can do it. They can act autonomously without having access to all the things, right? And they don't have access to all the data. They operate in their little box that I put them in, and they do the exact little job that I designated them to do, and they don't deviate from that, right? So I've gotten really into scoping AI agents lately. I guess that's the short version of it, and I guess I'll leave it at that for now. More to come on that later because I've got some interesting stuff I've been working on there. Clay, how about you? What are you been working on in your nerd hour time as of late?
Well, my nerd hour ties in directly with today's show topic.
I thought it would.
I've been working on building my home lab and running my home lab. I have collected fundamental pieces of hardware over the past couple of weeks, up until the point where I decided, hey, it's time to house these items inside their own rack. And for the longest time, I've run into three of the most well, for the longest time, I've had three obstacles, three big obstacles that I ran into with my home lab. That was the space in which they should go. Do I want to go big, like getting a 19-inch rack, and how many use, or do I rather take it up small? Because lately I've seen small racks of 10 inches and like 12 use, 8 use become increasingly more popular as well. What do I want to do with storage? What will my storage solution be? And the final and biggest hurdle is, what should my rack function? What should be the goal of my home lab? So I've recently surpassed two of those obstacles, and I've been just on and on, making notes, documentation in Markdown. Yes.
You said the magic
I've
word.
Yes, of course. I love Markdown. It's perfect for stuff like this. It's absolutely perfect. And I've been mulling over IP plans. I've been mulling over which services should I run and everything. And that is something that has been taking up a long few weeks and months ever since I moved into this place. I've recently bought a house with my partner, and we've been living here since December 2nd, I think. Yeah, and ever since then I've been scrapping tech, routers, switches. I recently purchased my number one favorite switch, which is a Cisco Catalyst
Ah,
C1000. Yeah, it
right,
runs
enterprise
classic
grade.
iOS. Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And I've been loving. I've been tinkering with it. It has 16 PoE 16 PoE slots, and it's just great. So yeah, I've been in and out a big metal box for the past couple of weeks, screwing in the cage nuts and everything, hurting my fingers in the process,
Yep.
like a sysadmin rite of passage, more like.
That will happen. Yep.
Yes, and I still refuse to buy a cage nut tool because I just, I don't know. I think for the amount of stuff that I put in and the amount of times I use cage nuts and plug it in and plug it out, I just use my fingers and it
Yep.
works fine. You just have to be careful. But yeah, so yeah, I've been doing a lot of tinkering with Home Lab the well the past couple of months.
Very, very relevant for today's topic, and that's why I figured you'd be a good co-host for today's episode. And so, I guess let's jump into the main topic today. And of course, today we're focusing on what is actually in our home labs. So I figured this would be kind of like a fun exercise to actually talk about what hardware we're using, what virtualization layers are we using, what services are we running, why are we running those services, that type of thing. And at the end, this is going to be particularly relevant for me. I have a section in my outline at the end here called the graveyard. What did I cut from the home lab? Why? That type of thing. Because I recently, I'll get into it during that section, but I recently pared down the home lab for, there's reasons. I have reasons, and we'll get into that. So I guess we'll start with the hardware here, and I guess I'll selfishly go first here as well. And so we talk about the hardware that I have in my lab. It consists of a couple of machines. I guess, how do I want to start this? We'll start at the network layer. As in terms of hardware. So I've got and this is coming to no surprise to anybody who's been a long time listener of the show. I'm a Ubiquity guy, right? So I have a Ubiquity UDM Pro that basically runs the house from a network perspective. I used to have a layer 2 switch in the works, but after I pared down the lab, I have basically everything running off of the UDM Pro and the 8 switch ports that come with it. I was surprised. I'm like, really? I'm running everything off of 8 switch ports? That doesn't seem like me. But I have 1 port to spare still, which is shocking to me. Anyway, 2 of those are PoE devices. So the PoE devices are actually the Ubiquity WAPs. I have 1 on each floor of my house. And so that pretty much covers the network layer. Like I said, I used to have it was an HP layer 2 switch in the house that, I'd get fancy with VLANs on, and I'd do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. But I think the network was the piece that I tinkered with the least. So I really simplified the networking layer in the house. The UDM Pro still allows me to do things like separate networks, right? So all of I jokingly call it the production stuff in the house. That is the ability for my family to do DNS lookups, browse the web, run Netflix, all of that type of stuff is production in the house, right? And they've got their own dedicated network. That way, it doesn't matter what I'm doing in my home lab. As long as the UDM Pro is online, they can get out to the internet. That's all that matters, right? So that covers the network layer. In terms of compute, I really, this is where I really pared down, and I'll get into why a little bit later in the show. But I'm now running off of a single monstrous Debian Linux box. So it's a home build. Basically, it's an ASRock motherboard with a AMD 7600G CPU in it. A pretty high-end Ryzen, just a GPU, CPU. Pretty high-end Ryzen CPU. The G part, it's got its own embedded Radeon chip inside the CPU. So I don't do any gaming or anything crazy on it. I have done some local inferencing on the AI side of the world with it, and it does okay. But mainly that machine these days is primarily used to run virtual machines. So it's a Debian box. It's got 128 gigs of memory in it. And I bought that before the crazy memory prices happened.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yep. So I bought that just before all the memory craziness started. And I've got 5 virtual machines running on it currently. Let me list off those really quick. So I've got so like I said, 5 virtual machines. And again, this is like the most pared down my lab has ever been. And so the first one is it's basically a VPN box. It acts as a tail-scale exit node, and that's how I VPN in and out of the house when I'm traveling. I've got a software forge running in the house, and that's where all my local Git repos are stored. That's running Forge.io is what it's an offshoot of Gitia. I also have a file server, and my newest VM is an AI agent worker node. So I'll get into that when we start talking about services and stuff later. But those are basically the virtual machine breakdown of the lab. And I'm trying to think of other hardware. Storage. So this one monstrous Debian box actually has a 4 terabyte NVMe, also procured before hardware costs got insane. So a lot of my VMs are stored on that 4 terabyte thing. And then again, single point of failure, single server. I do have a old Netgear Ready NAS 316. It's old. It's like 10 years old, but it
Ooh.
is a 6-bay NAS. I have it set up in a RAID 6 because I have seen two drives die simultaneously. I do not trust RAID 5 these days, even with a hot spare. So it's set up in a RAID 6 with a hot spare. Yes, that's a lot of parity. That's a lot of capacity lost, but these are terabyte disks. I think it's got 3 or 4 terabytes usable, and it's strictly a backup node. I have it. It uses an old insecure version of SMB. So I switched off SMB on it, and it basically is a glorified hard drive for my backup virtual machine. I have it mounted on the backup virtual machine as an NFS share, and that is the only machine in the world that is allowed to connect to that NAS. And then from there, it backs up out to Backblaze for my offsite backup storage. So, yeah, I think that covers the. I'm trying to think if there's any hardware I'm forgetting. Yeah, I think that covers the core hardware of the lab. I do the bulk of the stuff on that big monstrous Debian box. There's a lot of hardware I just ripped out, and I'll talk about why a little bit later in the show. But how about you, Clay? What hardware are you looking at in your lab right now?
Well, I will definitely not one up you there, Andy. I gotta say, I feel a bit like that one scene from American Psycho, where they're trading off their business cards, and Paul Allen is listing off his. Oh, look at that subtle off-white coloring. And I feel over here like I feel like the man's sweating here, like, darn it.
Hey,
No, that's
we all have to
quite an
start somewhere,
impressive lab.
man. We all have to
That is
start
correct.
somewhere.
That is correct. That is correct. I know people who are right now starting their labs out of broken laptops. So
I was
we
there at
all
one
gotta
time.
start. Yeah, absolutely. Let's say my home lab currently consists out of the rack that's housing all the hardware stuff. It's 40 or 42 use. Again, I have not exactly measured it up, but it fits in my car, and I run a small, very tiny, small Honda car, so still impressed. Um, what's inside? Yeah, I have it on the side here. I think I'm running a very simple patch panel in first array, then my um, Cisco Catalyst C1000 switch I use as my um, main source of routing the network through it. It's again, like I said, it's my favorite switch, hands down. I learned how to configure switches using that iOS that it houses. So that's why I was very happy finding a good deal on that. It's a 16-port switch, and it's already occupying, I think, 8 slots right now. So half of it. I definitely will not be having a spare slot at the end of the road, but that's fine. Let's see, and I'm for my yeah, I guess you could say technically it's an edge router. I host a very tiny VL Enet Opal travel router. I use that as the
Okay.
main network router for my home lab. Mostly since it's, like I said, it was very tiny, and I initially planned on building a tiny home lab. Well, I definitely surpassed that goal, and well, now I am stuck with the tiny router, but it does come with a built-in VPN.
Nice.
Actually, two options of built-in VPNs. You can configure Open VPN and WireGuard on there, and you can switch which one you'd like to use, and then you have a physical VPN switch on there as well. Very, very nice, very nifty. And definitely planning on phasing that one out because it runs very hot.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, for my main hypervisor, for my Node 1, I'm running Proxmox on an HP microserver G7, which
Those are nice.
is this,
I
yeah,
like those microservers.
it's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
I've seen those microservers way back when I still worked over at a um small retail chain over here in the Netherlands, and every one of those chains back in the admin room, they all had the same microserver laying around, and it was always that HP microserver, the black box.
Yep.
So inside the microserver, I've spec'd it out. I've upgraded the RAM to 32 gigs of RAM. Still a long way from 128 gigs, Andy.
Hey,
But oh
memory's
well.
expensive now, man. I mean, 32
Memory
is
is
it's like having a block of gold right now. I mean,
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And what I did with it more, I did something that one of my tech friends said I shouldn't have done at all. Is I took out the CPU and replaced the thermal paste and everything. I thought like, hey, this is what people do usually when they get a new card, when they get a new GPU or a new CPU or something. You take out you take it out, replace the thermal paste for better thermal handling, and
yep.
pop it back in. Well, I did, and it was surprisingly difficult to get that little thing out there, but I managed to. Um, Furthermore, there are right now four, I think. Yeah, there are four. No, I think. Yeah, there are. I am absolutely sure there are four SATA drives in there. Each of them are 4 terabytes, and I have not put them in RAID because I'm hosting them on my hypervisor on
Ah,
Proxmox,
okay.
and I'm using them as one big pool.
Yeah.
Um, for ZFS,
Yep.
ZFS,
Yep.
and currently that functions as my media vault for movies, TV shows. But I am planning to put on a bit of data here and there, not hosting VMs on them necessarily. I think the performance on that will be mm, not not up to par. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the node one. Then underneath it, there's a second server that runs on an HP ProDesk G4 Mini. And I gotta tell you, if you're familiar with those mini PCs, either from HP, Dell, or Lenovo, they are absolutely tiny powerhouses. They
Yeah.
uh, you can just configure them, set them up and forget. It's literally set and forget. They are designed to just be placed somewhere on a desk or behind a monitor. They run their OS, you run your services on them, and you essentially don't turn them off, and they don't use a lot of wattage as well. I'm currently I have them plugged in into a power meter from Tapo, TP-Link's smart home business site, and just to check up on how much energy I am actually using, even with solar panels on my roof. It's still wise to be energy cautious.
Yeah.
Gotta go green.
That's right.
Um, I think that is. Let's see, we will know where we have the switch. We have the compute nodes. Actually, fun little fact. Node one, the microserver, actually functions as a subnet router for all the other devices that are connected currently on the home network. I
Interesting.
used I use Tailscaled VPN, and I have that installed on Node 1. And yesterday I was working on it. I did the first boot ever since breaking them down and building them back up again. I did the first boot, and I could instantly reach Node 1. I could not reach Node 2. And after bugging on why that would be, I took out the crash card, took out the keyboard, took out the monitor, booted up Node 2, see what went wrong. I'm like, okay, Proxmox is telling me this IP address. I navigate to that IP address on my main PC. I can't ping it. I can't reach it on the web. So does it exist? Is it assigned to something else? And usually I'd say I blame DNS. From my fair share of history with it, history troubleshooting DNS and setting up my own DNS servers. But this time there was absolutely no way I could blame DNS for this. Somehow, and it took me way too long and a lot of tinkering with AI to figure out what the problem was. I figured out that Node 1 by myself was set up as his subnet router to route all the stuff on there, and apparently Node 2 did not talk that way, or I think it was Node 1 not using a very niche and specific setting inside inside the config file on Proxmox after the first boot again. So after I went through a few hours of troubleshooting, I got Node 2 online. Immediately checked if my Plex server was active, and it was. Immediately also checked if my Samba share was active, and it was, to my pleasure. And now, after hours and hours, I've decided to I have done enough. It's become way too late right now. I've decided to close the door of the rack and write out any plans I still have to build inside of it. Have a few web plates lying around. Still want to tinker with maybe a bigger router. Um, I do like the idea of Ubiquity. I use Ubiquity a lot on my work. My boss is a huge fan. He had me install a few security cameras and an NVR on an associate of his their store. So safe to say, I've had first-hand experience, but I tend to stay away from. Yeah, I don't want to call it necessarily a monopoly.
Right.
I don't. Yeah, much like Cisco, of course, has their own ecosystem. So does Ubiquity with
They do.
Unify.
Yep.
And I feel um, if I if I buy one AP, why not buy two APs? If I buy two APs, maybe an Edge, core router, a Ubiquity Dream Pro. Hey, and if I get that, why not the NVR for all my other
Yep.
IoT smart home security systems?
Yep.
And before I know it, my entire rack will be filled with Ubiquity, and like it's all roads lead to that site. And I tend to like I like to plug and play. I like to discover
Yeah.
different hardware choices, different companies. Um, I'm not writing off Ubiquity at all. There is a good
Right.
chance I am in the works of buying an AP, because if I switch out this router, I will get a router that doesn't come with an access point. So I end up buying an access point anyway. So I might look either over at Ubiquity's access points, or maybe something else. But yeah, to narrow it down, that is what my hardware of my home currently consists out of.
Yeah, no, that's a good setup. You got me beat on the networking side for sure. Like I said, I've got that one. I've got my UDM Pro and I got my 2 access points, and I I don't know why I'm good with the networking side of the equation, but that's the side of the sysadmin wheelhouse that for some reason interests me the least. So I follow my best practices and I do the bare minimum to get the network up and in the configuration that's needed. And then I'm like, okay, all right, VM and storage time, or compute and storage. That's always the stuff I always like doing, was the storage fabric and the compute side, whether that's VMs or containers or Kubernetes or whatever, right? So, um, well, I think we both kind of gave spoiler alerts away here for our virtualization layer. You mentioned you're using Proxmox. I am using. I think I mentioned Debian box. I'm using KVM, kernel virtual machine. It's the virtual machine capabilities that are baked right into the Linux kernel. And uh, people that watch the show know I'm a big Hyper-V guy. Hyper-V and I go way back to 2008. I remember running Hyper-V on Windows Server 2008. It was okay then. It certainly wasn't amazing and good like it is now. But there's a reason I want KVM in my lab. Couple of, I guess, ideological reasons, but also I've always been a big open source guy. If I go all the way back to like my very first IT job, it was for at least what we here in the States would call a K through 12 school district, kindergarten through 12th grade, right? So,
Right.
we had just a ton of Linux servers on that network because we were, an educational facility with limited budget. So we used a lot of open source. And my very first IT mentor, Joe, if you're listening, I'm telling a story about our school days, but he really did a good job of instilling that respect of open source into my very young sysadmin brain at the time. And so, even though, as I got more into the MSP space and the enterprise space, and I started doing more with proprietary vendors like Microsoft and Cisco and whatnot, I've always had that open source bug in the back of my head, and so when I did this most recent lab refresh, I ripped out everything proprietary. Everything in my lab now is completely open source. And so, yeah, using KVM to run all my virtual machines, and it's fine. KVM actually really surprises me how well it works these days. I have not once seen it drop a virtual machine. It just quietly does its job. It's rock solid. You can live migrate machines between KVM hosts now. I mean, it's very, very feature rich. The one thing, some of the terminology is different than what you're used to with some of the other major hypervisors. So when you spin up a virtual machine in KVM, it's got kind of this concept of a domain, not like the sense of a domain name, but like a run space almost is kind of the idea. And it's like when you go to stop a VM, you're destroying, that's the actual term that it uses, destroying the domain. That just means you're turning it off. You're eliminating the compute component of that particular VM at that point in time. But it sounds destructive, right? Like destroy. I'm like, wait, really? Destroy? Are we like destroying a virtual machine here? No, you're just destroying the run space component of it. And I'm sure some of that terminology, excuse me, I'm sure some of that terminology comes from the Linux kernel side of the world.
I was about to say, it sounds like a book I once read, and later I saw it was a bit of a meme on the niche side of the internet. It's, I think OS internals guidelines, and
Yeah.
it was killing children, dumping core, killing yourself. And now you mentioned destroying domain. Yeah, it does. It vaguely rings a bell. Gotta say, interesting terminology.
Yeah, I thought so. So that was one thing I had to wrap my head around. I mean, I'd used KVM in the past here and there for little one-off projects, but it's never been my my bread and butter. It runs everything hypervisor, and I gotta say I've been pretty happy with it. Beforehand, before that, I had been using a K3s cluster. K3s is Kubernetes Lite, but that whole cluster had to get decommissioned for reasons I will mention in the graveyard section of this conversation. So, but yeah, that's what I'm using for the virtualization layer. I know you mentioned Proxmox for you, right, Clay?
Yes, correct. I use Proxmox ever since I think I've talked about it in the past before in my first guest episode here,
Yep.
because Broadcom's very bold acquisition of VMware and the choices that and consequences that came along with it happened right during college time, mid to the end of college for me. And before summer, we were running on vSphere and vCenter, and after summer, it was all gone.
Yep.
None of our VMware licenses that were initially planning to get restocked, or at least proprietary licenses like educational and stuff. Eventually, they immediately made the switch up to Proxmox and having us learn virtualization that way. And that was, I think, a big reason on why I use Proxmox as a hypervisor. Also, yes, Proxmox hasn't paid tier. That's right.
Yep.
But the free community edition of Proxmox is just as good. If it is so full of features. You have so many support on different size plugins running a backup server. Proxmox, for those of you who don't know, Proxmox offers a 256 gigabytes free backup server of their own, and you can use it to run a backups within your own hypervisor. There are a lot of functions in Proxmox that I like that I've gone never even got my head around. But also simpler functions. For instance, user management, MFA setups, also stuff like Ceph, self-healing, high availability. I think all of those combined reasons, all the little things, make one hypervisor that made it to be the choice that I got behind. And I think that's why I use it. Also, it's very easy to set up. You spin up a VM. First time users can have a tiny bit of of a learning curve. You just have to know how does it work? How do you use storage nodes? How do you create a VM? What's a data cluster? How do you add more nodes to your data center? But since the community edition is so rich, there's a lot of forums and discussion boards, and there are tons of videos and tons of guidelines and websites and documentaries that can help you set up your first hypervisor if you should use Proxmox as your first. So yeah, I think that's why I use it.
Yeah, I've always heard good things, and I just looked it up just now because I'd heard it before, but I didn't know for sure. So under the hood, Proxmox is KVM, but Proxmox has built their secret sauce is their management layer that they put on top of it, right? Because the, there's so much stuff in KVM that I have to do via the command line, but of course, again, I've got the gray hair, so I'm very comfortable in the command line. Like if
Yes.
if there's a blinking green cursor, I feel right at home. So like that works for me. But if I was managing clusters at massive scale, I probably wouldn't want to be doing quite as much from the CLI, and having something like Proxmox's interface available would be very beneficial. It really has a I'm often surprised in the times I've used it how much it feels like vSphere. It really has that
Yes.
vSphere vibe. Um,
Yes.
so it works very well. I'm actually running on my backup VM. It actually uses Proxmox backup. That's what I'm using for backup. Now, because I'm not using Proxmox VE, the hypervisor, it
Right.
doesn't automatically configure the backup jobs for me. I have to go into each machine I want to back up, and I have to manually configure the systemd service to actually kick off the backup job. It's a manual step that I have to do extra because I'm just using KVM. But again, same thing. Gray hair, comfortable with the CLI. It's a Tuesday for me. So
Yes.
anyway, um, so yeah, good choice on the Proxmox side of things there. So, in terms of other services that I know I run on my side, I've mentioned a lot of them already. Uh, Tailscale for network access, and the thing I like about Tailscale, for those that aren't familiar, Tailscale is an overlay network. Right, it creates like a virtual IP space that sits across multiple geographies if you want it to. And I've always liked that because if I want to, I can give other people access to the tailnet, right? That's the network component that Tailscale creates. I can give people access to that tailnet, and I can I can set up a config file where it resolves the domain name of the one machine they need to access. I can do ACLs in the side of the tailnet. I'm consistently amazed at what I can get done with Tailscale. I've got nothing but good things to say about it. And that's with the free product, right? They have a
Oh
whole
yeah.
series of paid offerings that I've never needed because the free version is so feature rich. So that's what my one Tailscale VM is doing. I have file services that I use for various things on the network. You mentioned Samba earlier, so I do have a Samba server that acts as my primary file server. I will say, whenever I am doing file copies to and from my Mac, I don't do those file copies using SMB. I don't know if I've not dug into it a whole lot yet. Whenever I try to copy over SMB off of my Mac, it just takes forever. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know if it's uh, Apple's SMB implementation is just super cautious and there's a lot of overhead. I don't know. Anytime I have to copy files from my Mac to or from that file server, I just use SCP. I just use SCP and it's super fast and easy. And anyway, so I use that file server for a number of things. The one it's called my WRKR, so Andy HM for home, WRKR. That's my AI agent worker machine. And so, like I said earlier in my nerd hour segment here, I've been doing a lot with AI agents and more complex series of tasks. Again, being from the security world, whenever I looked at agents, I was like, I don't want to give it a whole lot of access. I don't want it to have, because an agent is going to do things that I don't always anticipate it's going to do. Right. And so by having a dedicated machine with dedicated run spaces on the machine, dedicated boxes for these agents to run inside I reduce the risk of it doing something stupid, right? I mean, you've heard the stories of like, oh, Claude wiped out my SQL database, even though I told it not to, and things like that, right? So I've started dabbling in that, but again, using a dedicated machine with very, very tightly controlled access to where they can do very targeted jobs in a safe environment. So,
I think you
and
mentioned in one of the earlier episodes, not sure which one, there was a story about someone running, I think, Google's agentic AI. Forgot what the name was on top of my head. And it deleted all of their music inventory.
yes.
I think you know what I mean. Yeah,
Yep, I
and
remember
now
this.
that you
I remember this particular case, and it was, I don't remember if it was, it might have been Gemini, because I remember the post. The guy had all this music spread out across all these different folders, and it was not organized.
yeah.
File systems get ugly after a while. And he wanted it to take all these file actions, these move, delete, rename actions, basically just set it loose on this whole root directory, and it just nuked a bunch of stuff instead of doing what he wanted, right? And that's always been my thing with AI agents is like, yeah, they operate sometimes in a way we don't always expect. And so I'm always leery when I give AI agents access to data. And so far, whenever I've given agents access to data, you can be damn sure there's a copy of that data in its original
Oh
form
yeah.
somewhere else. So,
Oh yeah.
um, and that's just
Absolutely.
me being cautious, and everybody should do their due diligence on that. But anyway, um, the one other service that I'm in the process of standing up, and this is very much a home lab thing, is that I'm a tabletop RPG gamer, and I have been the forever DM for my group of players. And the group has gotten tired of D&D 5th edition, and they've decided they want to play Cyberpunk Red now. And so I've started standing up virtual tabletop software. I use it's called Foundry VTT. Fantastic tabletop software. You pay for it once and you own it, and
Ah.
just spin it up on a Linux VM, and give people access to the relevant tailnet stuff, and they can access the tabletop from wherever they're at. So there will soon be a sixth virtual machine on my network. I used to have 14 virtual machines involved in my home lab, but now there's only 6. So, but we'll get
Yeah.
to that. How about you? Any services that you run, Clay, that you haven't mentioned yet?
Let me see. Well, I run not a lot of services since I'm still building the home lab up from scratch. I do run Plex
Yep.
for all my movies and TV shows. I am, however, looking over on migrating off of Plex and choosing Jellyfin.
Okay.
And a big reason for that is way back when one of my coworkers told me they also run a home lab. They said, "Yeah, I bought Plex lifetime pass for I think $25 on a Black Friday sale." I was like, "Okay, that sounds good."
Yeah.
And I looked over the lifetime pass on Plex, and it was currently it's sitting at about 249 €49.
Big difference.
And yeah, a very big difference.
Yep.
And recently I received an email on my personal inbox from Plex saying, "Hey, we're having upcoming price changes on our subscription models of Plex, and upcoming price change of our lifetime pass. We're increasing the price of our lifetime pass from 249 to $730." And
Oh,
the first time I read this, it was, mind you, it was, I think, 7:30 a.m. And I squeezed my eyes like, oh, it's way too early. 700, no, they probably mean, I don't know, 279 or something like. So I blinked a few times, like squeezed a few times, like, oh my god, it is real.
that's a
This
massive increase.
Plex is being used by people to replace their Netflix,
Yeah.
as an example, to replace streaming services, to have something you can host your own, something tangible that you're in charge of. And with this upcoming change, I think they're massively shooting themselves in the foot first,
Yeah.
because everyone knows no sensible one in their mind is gonna go ahead and think, this is the right time to buy either the lifetime pass now, or it's fine, I can splurge out and spend a $730 on my lifetime pass on a service that is looking more and more like a big service that is trying to replace. No one will reasonably do that. Of course, there is never a 0% factor, 0% chance, but I think by making this decision, they were initially hoping a lot of people will opt out of the lifetime pass and go onto their monthly subscription passes. Or I think a lot of people might be thinking, okay, I gotta get a lifetime pass right now. I think that's initially maybe their chess move here. But reasonably, what I think will happen is a lot of people will just go over to find another solution for streaming services that they can self-host.
There's
But yeah, right now I am still using it. I am planning to migrate off of it. Any other services I'm running? Last night I was trying to set up Home Assistant dashboard.
okay.
It was in the first few initial stages of spinning up a VM. Ran into an error, and it was already getting way too late to start another troubleshoot adventure, so I left it at that. I am planning. I have a lot of plans. I want to run Vault Warden, because currently I run Bitwarden in my browser and as a piece of software, mainly on my PC, my phone, my laptop at work. I run it basically everywhere, but I do like the idea of hosting it myself.
Yeah.
Bitwarden is one of the companies that, well, yes, they also have a paid tier. They offer just enough and about enough services on their free tier, just like Proxmox, that keep you subscribed to that model. Vault Warden, haven't really read too much into it. I have a few friends who run their own Vault Warden server, so I can always give them a message and have them take a look at my setup. So that's Vault Warden. I do want to move away from Discord eventually.
Yeah.
When SysAdmin Weekly had the plan to create some sort of community board, and before the GitHub discussion board was live, there were plans of having maybe something of a forum, maybe of a Discord, but each of them comes with their own negative side.
Yep.
And now lately with Discord's identity stuff that's been going on. Oh man.
Don't get me on that soapbox.
Oh yes. The last outage made me look up on what cloud infrastructure Discord was hosted on. And at first I thought it was Cloudflare, but it's actually hosted on Google's
Really?
side of. Yeah, really,
Interesting.
you gotta look it up. It's crazy. And at that point, during the outage, Google's cloud infrastructure had no outages reported, but Discord sure had. Yeah. I want to move away from Discord, even though it's so baked into the system that I use. I use Discord for dropping URLs on my own Discord server. There's only one person residing inside that server, and that is me. I made a few threads for different URLs, different websites. I found articles that listed GitHub repos that I plan to take another look at. I use it for text drop and everything, but more and more, and I recommend no one to do it like that, because using Discord as a file server will inevitably have you run into the problem that one day you can no longer log in. I had a
Yep.
friend whose business was in art, in commission-based art, like drawing original characters, and
Yep.
her whole platform existed on mainly on Instagram and Discord. And one day she was hosting a streaming party. Something during the screen sharing was dropped for a second, and then she instantly received 3 warnings, 3 strikes, and then the next day her account was banned. So her whole server was down and everything. People were like, "Hey, where is she at?" And that was her bread and butter. So I'm gonna move away from Discord for my own benefit and for my own safety.
Matrix and
Planning.
Elements, I think, are a good replacement there.
Yes, yes. I'm
I don't know if
currently
that's where you were going
looking.
with that, but that's the one I think of
Yeah,
as an
no.
alternative.
I am looking at options, and I'm open. I am open for suggestions. Someone did whisper to me last week that TeamSpeak 6 is now out. TeamSpeak Server 6 is out, and it's gotten a lot of quality of life features that weren't the case before in earlier versions of TeamSpeak.
Man,
Also, screen sharing, high quality screen sharing, like 60 FPS, 1080p, or native resolution, or whatever the host is running on their
that's
server.
that's a
Might be
blast
something
from
to
the
look into.
past for me. I remember
Oh
running
yeah.
TeamSpeak back when I was doing LAN parties on CRT monitors, man. Like, man, that goes way back.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Mostly, yeah. Services that I plan to having. Also something like a local hosted Spotify replacement. Currently enjoying Spotify. Of course, I listen to my favorite podcast on there. Not to toot your horn, Andy, but
I
yeah,
appreciate
it
that.
would be nice. I have too many playlists. I have too many playlists with thousands and thousands of songs, and I don't. I am in the family subscription tier with my partner, the parents, and everything.
Oh yeah,
I get baked in, and yeah, so I pay like what, €2 or €3 a month, and it's fine. I can miss out on it, but all the all the scraped pieces of music that I have on there, like songs that are made by artists who are no longer around us, songs that are not even on YouTube but only exist on Spotify and SoundCloud, etc. Yeah, I do kind of like to keep that site safe, and also self-hosting it. So yeah, that's mostly my plan for the nearby future.
pretty comprehensive list there. So very good. Uh, so with the time we've got left here, I
All
want to
right.
wrap up
Yeah.
with 2 quick points here. So one, what do you plan? So I'm going to kind of condense this. What do you plan on using your lab to learn in the near future? And if there's anything you've gotten rid of recently out of the lab, why? So I guess I'll go first on these. So on my certification list are CISSP and one of the offensive cybersecurity certifications. So I've been doing a lot of pen testing type stuff, and much more ethical to do pen testing on stuff that you own than on other people's things, right? So, if I want to do a little bit of pen testing against a Windows box, well, I spin up a Windows box on my massive Debian virtualization host, right? And so that's probably the main way that my cluster will be used. My lab will be used for learning in the immediate future. As folks who listen to the show know, I had for probably 6 months been running um, a lightweight Kubernetes cluster across several physical nodes inside of my lab environments. And so this ties in with the graveyard section of this conversation, right? What's some things I removed and why? Well, I used to have 4 physical virtualization hosts in this network. I had 2 older, like 10-year-old server type boxes, self builds. One of them was a super micro box, so that wasn't a self build, but it was a to be honest, I don't even remember where I got that. It was like an old customer didn't want it anymore. It was a hand me down, right? Another one was an
Well,
old
that's
box.
trash.
Yep, exactly. Another one of them was an old gaming box that I had transitioned into a server type role years ago. And then the 4th node was an old laptop that had a ton of memory in it. I had like 48 gigs of memory in it because I used to run local demos at conferences on it. So I needed lots of memory. And so I had a KVM VM on each one of those nodes that acted as a node in a Kubernetes cluster. Well, one weekend, I had bad blocks start showing up all over the place on that old laptop. The the one of the other 2 old boxes started having power issues that I didn't want to troubleshoot, and I looked at that laptop and I ran some disk utilities to tell me how many bad blocks there were and what the runtime of the NVMe drive was, and it was way past its lifespan. Like, given
Oh
the
no.
statistics on this NVMe chip, it was amazing that it was still running to begin with. So that sent me down the rabbit hole of like, okay, well, if I still want my Kubernetes cluster, I need to find something to run it on, right? And so I'm like, well, you know what? I'll just run it on a small ARM cluster. I'll go grab, like 3 or 4 Raspberries, with 16 gigs of memory each, and I'll attach an NVMe to each of the Raspberries, and it won't be that expensive, will it? It'll be fine. Because, I remember
Oh
buying
boy.
Raspberries with 16 gigs of memory for, I don't know, like $95 or something like that.
Easy.
No, now it's 315 for the base unit for the 16 gig model. And then I had to tack on an NVMe on top of it. Now, if you're not familiar with Kubernetes, so Kubernetes, if you want to stripe storage across all the nodes, it uses a storage service called Longhorn. And that way it turns all the storage across all the nodes into one contiguous volume that all the nodes can share. You have that, and then you also have like the underlying database, the caching stuff that the Kubernetes cluster uses for the clustering services. All of that stuff is very, very write intensive. So I know I can't use a standard consumer grade NVMe card because it is going to go belly up way sooner because it's doing a lot more writes than a standard workload. So I start going down the rabbit hole of looking for um, a write friendly NVMe option. I know I'm going to spend a little bit more, but I'm looking for a write friendly NVMe device, and I literally cannot find any. Not they're really expensive, just they are out of stock and cannot be found
Yeah.
anywhere. That's the problem I ran into with that idea. And so once I ran into that idea, I'm like, you know what? Am I working towards a Kubernetes certification? Do I really need to learn Kubernetes right now in this instant? No. Okay. That's when I decided, like, okay, given hardware costs and prices and availability, I'm re-architecting my lab for longevity now, not for raw horsepower. And that's when I sized everything down. And that's when I went from, like I said, 14 VMs across 4 nodes to now
Yeah.
5 VMs on a single node, right? With offsite backups and a NAS. And so my power bill was very happy about this change as well. So,
Oh yeah.
anyway, how about you? What are you planning on learning with your lab there, Clay? And what have you gotten rid of recently, if anything? I know you're in the building phase.
I am in the building phase. However, to create, one must destroy.
Yep, true.
To give more of a philosophical sway to it, I had bought a few years ago. No, I think a year and a half ago, I had bought a few mini PCs, starting, of course, with the HP ProDesk G4 Mini that I had gotten out of an internship. It was AOL, so I got that for free, and ever since then I was like, oh yes, this is what I want. I want a cluster of mini PCs. So scouring marketplaces, scouring tweakers, everything. I found a few HP slices, HP Elite slices, and I thought like, hey, is PC, is mini, right on, I'll take it. 8 gigs of RAM, sure, I'll swap that out. Turns out the performance was so lackluster. The power consumption weirdly was really high for the amount of time I had it on, and I bought like 3 of them, and I thought like, oh hey, nice, you can stack them up on top of each other, make a nice 3-node cluster in a data center on my hypervisor, and set and forget. But I found out the energy consumption of it, the sluggishness and setting it up. One of the mini PCs, one of those slices, I could not get into changing the oh no, that one setting in BIOS. Keep forgetting the name of it. It's like Intel powered. Not sure what the name was. It had to do something with virtualization as well. And
Is that Intel VT?
that's it. Yes, thank you. Could not for the life of me configure that inside the BIOS. So, with heavy heart, I decided to get rid of them. Put them up for way less than I bought them for. And now waiting for a buyer. I already sold one and planning on either selling the remainder of the 2 or just donating them somewhere to someone out there. Who knows? And its replacements will probably be another ProDesk Mini or something. I have my eyes on a specific Lenovo. I think it's the M70Q. It has an 8-lane PCIe slot, which you do have to use a razor for, but then you have 8 lanes, and you can basically put in whatever you'd like. Another slot for storage or 2.5 gigahertz, 2.5 network adapter. And I've been watching a few videos on people who tore those powerhouses down and crammed in as much as they could in that tiny house. And now I'm freshly motivated to do the same. So yeah, swapping out nodes. putting them in the graveyard if they don't function
Right?
to what I want. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never looked at these M70Qs. I just looked one up while you were talking about it. I mean, these things they're not too bad, to be honest, for the price point.
No.
Interesting. Huh. I'm about to take a look
Absolutely.
at that. I know the one thing I'm looking at adding to my setup, main and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if I'm being tinfoil hattish about this, if I'm panic buying. But when I look at what's going on with Anthropic and OpenAI and how the U.S. government has basically said, yeah, no Fable or Mythos for anyone right now, or GPT 5.6, I'm like, local inference is starting to sound really, really good right about
Oh
now.
yeah.
I've been looking at getting a framework desktop.
Oh.
Frame.work is the website. And they've got one of the AMD AI specific chips in there with the attached integrated memory. The one I want is expensive though.
Oh
So I'm
yeah.
looking at the 128 gig model. It can run very large local models, but it's gonna be like $4,000, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
ugh. I'm
You
like,
have to splurge out on it.
I'm like, even if I was using one of the higher versions of Claude, right? I mean, let's say I was using the $200 a month version. I mean, that's still that's like 2-3 years of Claude usage before I. So I don't know. That's one I'm stuck on, and maybe that'll end up in my lab at some point, but it's not right now. That's for sure. So anyway,
Ugh.
well, I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap up, Clay. As always, I appreciate you coming on the show to share your knowledge and insights and what you got going on in your home lab there. So good having you back on the show, my friend. We'll have to make it a third here at some point in the near future.
No doubt about it. Thank you for having me on the show for the second time again, Andy. It's been a breeze. I've been looking forward to making another guest appearance for a while now, so it's good to be back.
Definitely. Glad we can make it happen. So appreciate having you. And folks, appreciate you watching and spending some time listening to us talk about home labs and tech and sysadmin type stuff. So again, appreciate you all watching and being part of this community. Again, as a reminder, you can find all the links associated with the show out at www.sysadminweekly.com. You can go out to our GitHub discussion boards if you want to talk about your own home lab setup. Put a thread out there in the GitHub discussion boards. Again, I like to cover comments on the show as well too. If you'd rather put that information in a comment on the show, you can comment on our Spotify, the Spotify version of our episodes. You can comment on the YouTube version of the episodes as well too. Or if you just want to get to our inboxes, you can send us an email at contact@sysadminweekly.com, and that'll get you right into our inboxes. So with that, we'll let you get back to your day. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again next week for a future episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Have a good one.